Okay, here we go again, and we're going to, hopefully that'll go to sleep, because it's kind of a little blurry there on the screen. So today is January 16th, 2019, and this should be part 10, India. So, we just got to Calcutta, about crashed in the plane, got into the airport. It's about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. We run into a guy, and we're headed down to the YMCA. And so we must have taken a cab, or they have these three-wheeled motorized rickshaws, something like that. I'm thinking it was maybe a cab. And so we're getting into Calcutta, and we're looking out the window, and there's like people sleeping on the sidewalks, kind of shoulder to shoulder, a lot of people. Obviously it's at night, air's really dirty, people are kind of got these hibachi fires out by their feet on the curb type thing, and we get down to the YMCA, and we're thinking that it's going to be like the YMCA in America. Well, it's not. It's like this little building, and we're standing out in the street, and the cab leaves, and so we're standing there, and I think there was like a sign that said full. And so they didn't have any rooms, and so we're just kind of standing out in the middle of this street, and we start getting surrounded by about 5 of these guys. And so this is one of those kind of scary things that when you're traveling overseas you don't run into, but we did. And so they're kind of, coming around us, and we're backing up a little bit, and I'm kind of getting ready to drop my pack and run, and, you kind of got that fear for your life thing, they're going to rob you. And so anyway, this one guy starts talking to us in English, and as it turned out, they were okay, they were just curious about us. And so we said, well, we just got into Calcutta and we're looking for a place to stay. And so kind of I've got a friend that knows some place, and we'll get you a room and all this kind of stuff. And so a guy shows up in a rickshaw, which is a three-wheeled bicycle, so he's pedaling it in the front. And we got our packs and Bill's guitar and stuff, and so we get in this thing and we take off, and we're going down streets and alleys, and I mean the streets aren't wide and the alleys are really narrow. It seemed like 6-7 feet wide, not enough for a car, and we don't know where we went, but it seemed like we were quite a while. And we kind of pulled down this alley, and I put my foot out, and I just getting ready to jump, like, hey Bill, I think they're taking us down here to rob us. And so I'm just about to jump out of the rickshaw, and Bill says, oh, I think we're here. So we end up pulling up in front of this house, and we kind of walk inside, and it's just it's really hard to describe India if you haven't been there. There's people in cots just right next to each other, like in the rooms. The place is just packed. They had this one room that evidently for Calcutta standards was pretty nice. Don't think they used it that often because it was probably expensive. I think it was 10 rupees a night, and so that'd be like $1.25 for Bill and I. And by their standards, we kind of went up to the second, almost like third floor of this house, wooden structure, and It's got this double door entry that goes into this room, and there's a 2x4 across the door like it's locked. And so we get in this room, and we're in the room. We survived that night thinking we were going to get killed twice. And so I know this doesn't make sense, but India doesn't make sense. This room actually had a bathroom attached to it, and the floor and the bathroom were so disgusting. I literally just stood in the doorway and peed on the floor of the bathroom. I wasn't stepping in there. It looked like you could maybe fall through. It was bizarre. So we got up the next day, and we're looking out the window, and it looked like World War II, where everything had been bombed, and then there was like 6 inches of just like dust on all the buildings and the brick buildings and the stuff around there. And to be honest with you, we looked back on it and talked about it later, but I think we kind of went into shock. Form of shock, mild shock. We thought we had walked into a complete humanitarian disaster, and after a couple days we realized we hadn't. They just live like that. And so it seemed like we had they brought us probably breakfast. A lot of times when you're in a room like that, it comes with breakfast in the morning, so they brought breakfast up to us. It seemed like we stayed in that room for a couple of days. I mean, like I said, we were in shock. We were kind of freaking. And so once we figured out that it wasn't a humanitarian disaster, we decided that we would start venturing out and looking around. And so I'm not sure what we did. We might have gone someplace, but we eventually left that room with our stuff, and we got to the Nepal embassy in Calcutta. So we were planning to go to Nepal, Kathmandu, and so we went to the embassy in Calcutta, and we met a couple of guys that were Americans, and they were older. They were like 32, 34 years old, you know, nice clothes, clean, you know, looked like Americans, haircuts, and we got to talking to them, and they had actually gone around the world once before. I'm not sure they went with each other. They may have. And so this time, you know, like 6, 7 years later, they were going again, but they were flying from point A to point B, and back then they had a ticket that you could buy that you could fly all the way around the world. I think it was around $1,700, and we looked into that, and so that's what they had bought. And as long as you were going west, you could fly, you know, and make quite a few stops. And so they were doing that, and so they were in Calcutta, and they were at the Nepal embassy getting visas to go to Nepal. And so while we were there, we friended them, and they friended us or whatever, and so they told us about this place that we could stay. And it's kind of a second-class place. It wasn't like first class. Remember, in England, the first class, they were under British domain for years, and so the British came down there and built some nice buildings, and especially in the Capitol building, government buildings, stuff like that, were pretty decent, you know. And so they were staying in first-class places, and at this time around, but they had done it the way Bill and I were doing it before, so they knew what we were doing, and so they told us about this place. It was like second class. It doesn't seem like it was very much, 5 or 6 rupees a night, and that included your breakfast and dinner, ate a lot of curry, rice, but they said you could trust the place. In other words, you're not going to get sick off the food. The bottled water in the room was really bottled water. They didn't just take it out and fill it up out on the street with the tap and stuff like that. And so Bill and I were coherent enough to, write this address down or something and get to them. We found this place in Calcutta. And so we found out a day or two later that the planes from going to Nepal and the trains happened to be both on strike. And so I'm sure it was a God thing. We just weren't meant to go to Nepal, but so we have visas in our passports to Nepal, but we never went to Nepal. So we found this place. It was kind of like a courtyard, and one of the things they liked about it was once you got in the gate of this courtyard of this kind of hotel, you got all the stuff and junk and filth and dirt of Calcutta was kind of leave it outside, and so we probably stayed there for 4 or 5 days, and we would venture out and see markets and stuff like that. I had bought this kind of a ceremonial hookah thing that was more of a tourist thing than anything in India, and I went down and had it boxed up and sent it home, and it never got home. The people that worked at the post office, they took the stamps back off before they cashed them. They turned the stamps back in for money. So, a lot of things are very corrupt over there. We decided, we kind of ran into this kind of a shop, kind of a tent shop thing. It wasn't a permanent building. And they made these Indian clothes, they were seamstress and stuff, very good. And kind of this light cheesecloth, white, the stuff you see in India. In fact, I still think I have the set I bought out in storage. And so Bill and I both had a set of those made, and boy did that make a big difference. We noticed right away when we wore that stuff out into public, about 70, almost 80% of the attention that you would come on you in the public would disappear if you were wearing Indian clothes. And because if you're in Levi's, in American clothes, you stick out like a movie star, and just people are flocking around you and all this kind of stuff. So we really enjoyed that. So one of the things we were going to do when we were there was we were going to buy a train ticket to New Delhi from Calcutta. And so we went out, and you had to the train station, which wasn't too far from the Ganges River, and there was a big steel bridge there, older but steel, probably built by Britain, that went across the Ganges River. And so I remember as we went over there was a bus that I'm sure they had some kind of public transit type thing, but there were people hanging outside the windows. Like each window, there was, I know this sounds crazy, but there was like a guy hanging on each window. If you can imagine a school bus, not yellow and painted like that, but with those kind of windows that were down, a guy hanging on each one of those windows, a guy hanging on him over the top of that, and a guy hanging over him. There was 3 people on each window deep, all the way down this bus. The back fender was like about this far off the ground, going around this corner. So that was pretty wild. And so we get to the train station, and so everything overseas just goes into the slow motion. I mean, you're lucky to get one thing done a day. And so we get to the train station, and we're standing in line. There's like maybe 10 or 12 people in line. Again, probably a couple hours. I mean, just nothing goes. You know, each person that gets up there is taking 20 minutes. Nothing goes fast. So we get up to the line, and we go, yeah, we would like to buy a ticket to New Delhi. And he goes, oh, I'm not making this up. He goes, oh, this is the train station. You can't buy a ticket here. You got to go downtown and buy a ticket. Really? So we go, okay, and you know, the day's pretty shot by then. And so we go back outside, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to get back to the hotel. And so we decided we were going to take a trickshaw, which is a guy running and 2 wheels, you know, like you see them in China and Chinese type things, but they're in India too. And this guy he was old, and he had an eye completely gouged out with no patch on it. And so we felt sorry for him, so we thought, well, let's hire him, you know, to get us back to the hotel. So we hire him, and so we take off, and we go a ways, and we're going across this bridge, across the Ganges River. And so this bridge kind of has a crown in it, and then about every 20 feet or so, 25 feet, there's an expansion joint in the bridge. So there's a couple metal plates with a gap of maybe 3 or 4 inches, and so as the bridge expands and contracts, it kind of goes like this. Well, this bridge had quite an arch built into it, and so, you know, this guy's huffing and puffing. Like I said, he's older, and we're going up the thing, and we had our packs with us and Bill's guitar. I mean, you just can't leave anything anywhere. You've got to take everything with you all the time. You just can't trust anybody. Somebody break into the room, and we had that happen later on in the trip. And so so what happens is we're going across this bridge, and we're hitting these things, clonk, 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 and we're getting slower and slower because we're going up here. Well, pretty soon the crown's going down. Well, we get to going, and we get to going, and we get to going too fast, and this guy's running as fast as he can to keep up. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, and we're hitting this every 20 feet, we're hitting this thing on clong, clong, clong. Well, pretty soon we get down there, and boom, we hit this thing, and the back of the rickshaw breaks in half. And Bill and I go piling out the back with our packs and the guitar and everything we owned right on the street. Now, this isn't normal traffic like anyone in America could understand. There's everything from trickshaws to buses to cabs to donkeys to animals to every kind of transportation is on these lanes. And I know we were exhausted, and I remember in my mind, I hit the ground, and we're just like all over the place, and I'm thinking, I think there was a bus behind us. If that thing runs over us, we're dead. And then I thought, oh, just lay here and die. I mean, this is crazy. And so, anyway, the bus stops, and of course, you know, just flocks of 30, 40 people around this whole thing. They're picking stuff up. The rickshaw's broken in half. The guy can't continue. We felt sorry for him. We didn't have any money to buy him a new rickshaw, so, and so it was a mess. And these couple guys come up. Again, this is all going to sound crazy. A couple guys come up in the stagecoach, pulled by a couple of mules. And it's kind of a 3/4 size, maybe half size stagecoach that you would think of in like the Western movies in America where they have the stagecoaches. And they go, okay, yeah, we'll take you where you want to go. We'll take you where you want to go. And so we put all of our stuff in this thing, and we tell them where we're going, and we must have gone up and down. I'm sure we didn't go up and down every street in Calcutta, but we were hours going up and down these streets. And we go down these streets where the stagecoach would barely make it down the street with the shops on both sides, and they were all open air, and there's pots and everything for sale and handmade stuff and just more than you could imagine. A complete zoo. And so after several hours, it seemed like it was getting, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, the day is kind of getting gone. And we're like, I don't think these guys really know where our hotel's at. We don't know where we're going and all this. They don't, and so anyway, they finally we were kind of like, hey, we're going. We've been hours in this thing, riding around. What's going on? So then they finally admit they don't know where they're going. And so we end up getting a cab, and we get back to the hotel. So that was one day trying to buy a train ticket and didn't get it. So I don't know if it was the next day or the day after, but it was Friday. I do remember that. And so we go down to buy this train ticket at not the train depot, but the main office downtown Calcutta, miles away. 5 miles away from the train places where you buy the tickets. So, same thing. You get in line, you're waiting there, you're waiting there, you're waiting there. We must have waited probably 3 hours to get up. 15 people in this line. Finally get up there. I'd like to buy a train ticket to New Delhi. 2. And I said, well, do you take traveler's checks? And they said, no, we don't take traveler's checks. And they said, but there's a bank right across the street, and you can go cash them over there and then come back. It's like, okay, that's what we'll do. It's like, okay. We walk across the street, and the banks on Friday in India then closed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the weekend. And it was about 10 after 2. I'm sorry, it was 10 after 3. So we missed it by 10 minutes. So we did end up buying this little nut thing that was wrapped in a leaf from a guy in a cart, and we should have been crazy for doing that because that's like a local food vendor on the street that we must have been starving. I think their change was called pace. They had rupees for dollars and pace. Like they don't, other countries don't call them, pennies, nickels, quarters, dimes. They have different names for their coins. And so when you get into less than $1, it's called pace in India. So we went back to our hotel, and of course we couldn't cash any traveler's checks until Monday. So that was Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, probably went out, did some stuff. So we come back on Monday, we go to the bank, we get our tickets. It seems like we were going to leave for New Delhi like in a couple of days. So now it's Monday, we bought the tickets. Let's say Thursday we're going, maybe Wednesday we're going to go to New Delhi on the train, and it's going to go at night. like about 8 o'clock. And so